The novelist Ernest Hemingway has this famous quote where he says, "How did you go bankrupt? Two ways, gradually, then suddenly." Now, Hemingway said that about bankruptcy, but it fits our money stories too well. A financial disaster in our lives doesn't crash just one morning. It creeps in quietly, disguised as comfort, convenience, or simply confidence. It's rarely one big mistake that brings you down financially. It's a series of small, easy ones, each harmless on its own, that quietly add up over time until the foundation cracks. And that's exactly what I want to talk to you about in today's episode of the Inner Game podcast, about the stages of a personal financial disaster, the slow, invisible decline that most people don't even notice until it's too late. It all starts with what I call the comfort of ignorance. You get your first job, your first salary, and that first magical SMS message, salary credited to your account. You feel independent, you feel alive in control. You buy something nice, you go out to celebrate, maybe take your friends along. You tell yourself, I'll start saving later. And that later never really comes. Now, you don't feel irresponsible, just young and deserving. And that's how most financial journeys begin. You think you're fine because there's no visible problem. You are earning well, you are spending, you are enjoying, and you are surviving. It feels okay. But ignorance is like a hairline crack in the wall, which is invisible at first until it spreads and the structure weakens. The next stage is the illusion of control. After a few months of spending and enjoying it all, you finally started investing a bit, maybe through an SIP, or you buy a few stocks your colleagues or friends suggested. And not to forget an insurance policy you didn't read fully but just signed anyways. Now you feel mature now and you feel financially aware. You're doing all the things adults are supposed to do. But this stage is where the trap tightens. You're managing your money on autopilot. You're copying what others are doing without really knowing if it fits your life. It looks like progress, but it's motion without direction. And you mistake that motion for mastery. Now, the illusion of control feels safe, but it's hollow because deep down, you don't know what would happen if your income stopped tomorrow. You don't know your real expenses or what you would do in an emergency. You feel in control, but only as long as life behaves well. And this illusion of control gives way to the lifestyle inflation trap. It's a most subtle and socially accepted form of financial self-sabotage. You get a raise and almost automatically your expenses rise with it. You move into a better house, buy a nicer car, start ordering food instead of cooking, and justify it all with one simple line: I can afford it now. And maybe you can't. But what you don't realize is that with every upgrade, you're building a lifestyle that constantly demands more and more. What once felt like luxury soon becomes normal. And once something becomes normal, you can't easily go back. Society also cheers us on this stage. You're doing well, they say you are living the good life, but what they don't see is the anxiety that starts to creep in, the quiet fear of losing your job, and the constant need to keep up. The treadmill is moving faster and you cannot get off now. Now, the next stage a lot of people get into is the debt spiral. So you buy something on an EMI, you swipe your credit card a little more often. You tell yourself, I will clear it the next month. But next month never really arrives clean. There's always another expense, another excuse. You see, one of the hideous things about debt is that it feels empowering at first, like a shortcut to the life you want. But soon it becomes a slow tightening noose. You start paying one card with another. Your salary begins to feel like it doesn't belong to you anymore. It goes straight from your account to your obligations and liabilities. And what is worse is that this debt doesn't just take your money, it takes your peace of mind. You cannot now take risks. You cannot say no. You cannot take a break. You're constantly on the edge. You're living, but not freely. You're earning, but not owning. Debt is like modern slavery, just that it's completely legal. In fact, as Warren Buffett has said, having a large amount of debt is like driving a car with a big knife on the steering wheel pointed at your heart. If you do that, you will be a better driver. There will be fewer accidents, but when they happen, they will be fatal. Anyways, after the stage of the debt spiral and when the pressure becomes unbearable, most people move into the storm of denial. They stop checking their bank app, they ignore reminder emails for the EMIs, they tell themselves, everyone has loans, it's fine. They believe their next bonus will fix everything. They even convince themselves that as long as they can manage, there's no problem. But denial is like painting over rust. It looks fine for a while, but the decay does not stop. You're just avoiding the truth because it's uncomfortable. You may look confident from the outside, but inside, you are tired and you're scared. You know you're not in control, but you cannot bear to face it. And then one day, everything breaks. There's a collapse. It may be triggered by a job loss, it may be triggered by a medical emergency, a business failure, or sometimes just life being unpredictable. The income stops, but the EMIs don't. The bills don't. The rent doesn't. And suddenly your entire world feels fragile. You start doing the math about how long can you survive on whatever little you've saved, and the answer hits you like a punch in the gut. The answer is not long, not nearly long enough. Now ask anyone who is suffering or has suffered a personal financial collapse, and they will tell you that it feels unfair. But the thing is that this was not sudden. It's the natural result of years of small neglect, small ignorances, and small later decisions. The dam doesn't burst because of one drop of water, it bursts because of the many before it. Now, this is where I want to pause and say something honest. We love stories where collapse leads to awakening, where someone loses everything, learns their lessons, and rebuilds stronger. Those stories are comforting. They make us believe there's always a happy ending waiting on the other side. But I think the truth is that most people don't recover. Some do, yes, but many don't. Many simply adapt to the fall. They shrink their lives to fit the damage. They live very cautiously, always worried, always one bill away from panic. I've seen this too often. People who started with so much energy now living with financial exhaustion. They stop dreaming, they stop hoping, they stop trusting themselves with money. They go through life carrying the invisible weight of their past mistakes. Some people sink deeper into denial. They keep spending, they keep pretending, and they tell themselves they'll figure it out someday. But as always happens, someday never comes. That's the thing about financial collapse. It doesn't always teach the same lessons to everyone. We like to believe every fall makes us wiser, but sometimes it just leaves a scar. Some people rebuild from it, others live quietly in its shadow. And maybe that's the real tragedy of our lives, that money, which begins as a symbol of freedom, can end up being the very thing that chains us. It changes how we see ourselves. It makes us smaller and more cautious than we were meant to be. If you've seen someone go through this, maybe a friend, a parent, or a colleague, you know the look. The spark that once dreamed of more has dimmed into just wanting enough to get by. And like I said, not everyone comes back from financial collapse. And maybe that's why it's so important to recognize the warning signs before you get there. Awareness, I believe, is everything. So today, maybe take a few minutes, sit with your personal financial numbers, open that bank app you've been avoiding, look at what's really happening without guilt or excuses. See if everything's fine or if you're quietly heading towards a problem that your future self will have to fix. And if something doesn't feel right, start small and correct it. Check where your money actually goes. Most people think they know, but they don't. Set aside some time to write down your monthly expenses. And I don't just mean rent and EMIs, but also the food delivery cost, the subscription payments that you're making, and the impulsive purchase that you're making. The next step is to ask yourself one simple question. If my income stopped tomorrow, how many months could I survive comfortably? If the answer makes you uneasy, that's your signal to build a buffer. Even 1 month's worth of saving is a start. Then declutter, cancel the subscriptions you don't want or don't use. Sell something you don't need. Reduce one recurring expense this month, simply to remind yourself that you are still in control. And most importantly, talk about money. And don't do this like those influencers do on social media to show off. Do it to understand yourself. Talk to your spouse, your parents, and your friends, your kids as well. Silence, I think, keeps money problems alive, but conversations brings clarity to it. And you don't have to fix everything today. Just start paying attention and start being aware. Awareness, as I said, changes how you spend, how you save, and how you think. In the end, Remember that personal finance isn't really about money. It's about mindfulness. It's about staying awake to your own life. It's about knowing where your money is going and why it's going there, and whether it's truly adding peace or just noise to your life. The goal, after all, isn't to become rich overnight. It's to stop being blind to where you stand today. If this video made you stop and think even for a moment, do me a favor. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with what hit you the hardest, and share the video with someone who might need to hear it. This is because the more we talk about money honestly, the more we help each other live a little lighter and a little wiser. Thank you so much for your time.